All right, we're going to take a look at using Sparklines and a visualization with Report Builder. And to do that, we're going to go through and create a new shared data set. So I'm going to select New Data Set, and I'm going to select my connection into OLAP, Online Analysis Processing. And she's connecting, and I'll go in. All right, and now Query Designer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, and I'm going to go into the lab files. And I'm going to open up the Matheno Group 2012 of OLAP sales filtered by category year SQL file. And I'm going to execute the query. And she executes. And I'll go in here and I'll save it as the same name as I brought in. But this time it's going to save as a result set. And I'll say OK. And I already have it because I've tested it beforehand. Yeah, we'll go ahead and replace it. Test it again, always check it. All right, and we're good to go. Now I'm going to create a new report. And I'm going to go for blank reports just so we can do this so I can show you everything that's happening. Let's get rid of the footer and expand this down a little bit and put a title up in here and we'll call it Sparklines. Yeah, we will. Good grief. All right, anyway, data source, right click, we're gonna add a data source. Actually, I can get down here to data set, and I'll add the data set in here, and I'll use a shared data source, and I'm gonna browse on in. Shared data sets, and let's see if I can find that. Here she is filtered, and I'll say okay. And now we've got the data set down here. Now I'm going to go to the insert menu and I'm going to insert a table and I'm going to use the table wizard. So let me cancel out of that. Let's just rename this data set just so that I'm happier. So this is off of, I'm just going to name it OLAP so I know I can identify it. Remember, see that little icon down there? That means shared. So now I just changed this. OLAP will only appear here in Report Builder. Now let's go through and insert a table. We'll use the table wizard, and I'll insert. And I'm going to take I'm going to take sales amount and dump that on values. And in my column groups, I'm going to take the year. Now I want to use the year because when I do Sparklines, I want the Sparkline, the years are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 horizontally, and I want the Sparkline to represent graphically the totals for the years. So now I'll take product category name and I'll drop that down my row groups, and that's okay. Next, and this doesn't much matter, so we do want to show up subtotals and grand totals. And we'll just go in here with forest. I'm feeling green. And we'll say finish. Let's expand this down a little bit so that we can see it, and let's just execute it to make sure it works. And okay, it works. So let's go back over to design view, and what we're going to do is I'm going to click over in here in this column. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert a column. I'm going to insert the column to the left. This column is going to hold my Sparkline. So now I'm going to click in here in this text, in this row, I'll right click, I'll go insert, and I'm going to insert a Sparkline. By the way, the methodology would be the exact same thing for data bar or indicator, but we're going to insert a Sparkline. Now I happen to like line charts, and I'm going to take a line chart with a marker, and I'm going to say okay. Now when I click in the Sparkline text box, I have the values. I'm going to select for a value, sales amount. For the grouping of the categories in the columns, I'm going to come through and I'm going to select fiscal year, and now for the series product. And we've got that. Again, let's test it. All right, and now we have a Sparkline. As you can see, year over year, sales are up for audio, for computers. They're pretty much flatlined. That should dip a little for the real world. And this is kind of real world in here, the way this has gone in here. But you notice this is a little ugly to actually figure out the relationship. So let's just clean it up a little bit. I'm going to come back in here, I'm going to click, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go into text box properties. And we'll go with number, and I want to go with currency, and I want 1,000 separator, but I don't care about the pennies. And we'll say OK, and let's see what our change is. All right, you notice how that changed everything in here, just changing the 1. Now, it didn't change my totals. I still need to come back through that and change these totals. Let's do that. Let's come over here in sum sales amount. Again, go into text box properties, go into a number, change it to currency, get rid of my decimals. I want 1,000 separator. And see, I can also, let me show you that. I can show values in thousands, and I'll do that. And now I've got that, and if I slide this on across, you see this number down here is in thousands as we come on across. And now let's clean it up still a little bit more. See, I've got a little too much space taken up here, so let's go on through. This is just all part of the polishing effect. Now, if I want to change this side, you see I have to select so I get the border. And now I can move that on across, and I don't need this much space. Move that on across, and I don't need that much space for totals. I can move that on across, but I kind of like the Sparkline, so I'm going to give them a little more breathing area. Run. All right, now you can see the trend line. The great advantages of Sparklines is they can immediately draw your eye. So, you know, this is good news unless this happens to be expenses, etc. We can do some other really cool things in graphing, which we'll do in the module on formatting, such as if we have a dip in revenue, we can come down here and show this in red versus in green, etc. But that can get a little ugly. All right, we could also put an indicator in here. Okay, I inserted a column here, and now I'm going to go through and insert an indicator, and this is going to work differently than you're going to expect. At least I believe it will. So I'm going to insert down here an indicator. All right, and we'll go with, you know, the red, yellow, green. Makes life easy. And what we're going to look at is, of course, sales amount. And let's run it. Now you notice we've got the red, even though we have an uptrend, and a green on an even trend, and a yellow on a slight downtrend. You have to be cautious of that. That works differently than you'd think with indicators. I'll show you why. So if we go into the properties down here and we go into values and states, you see this indicators, the way they work is they look at the rate of a change. So red down here starts at 0 and ends at 33, right? Which is the rate of a change up. So if we want this to come, and then 33 to 66, and on up to 100, all right? So that yellow and green is in this border area, and that's why the indicators can be problematic. You know, you got to pick a place where they actually flip on through. So let's change this out. This is easier than you think. I'm sorry. Let's change this out. We'll change this to green because we like that. And we're going to leave that at yellow, and we're going to change this to red. All right. Normally we could go through and we could do an expression, or we change this value. I will also say on these indicators, the dashboard designer, which if you have SharePoint and uses KPIs, does a much better job of doing indicators here. Much more intuitive. So now let's run it. And you see we've got these different indicators up here, and you'd have to fool around with them deciding what is an acceptable rate of change. That's why, frankly, for indicators in here within the land of graphics, I would discourage their use. I'm just going to use Sparklines because they can immediately show you a ratio of what it is you want to look at. And let's go through and save it. And I'm going to save as, and we'll call this Sparklines shared, because I have a shared data set, and that sounds fine. And I'll save it out. And just for review, let's do this also. We're going to publish report parts, and I'll do review and modify just so you can see it again. And here's Tablix 1, and I'm going to call it the Sparkline. Now you notice I did insert a table, but it's still a table and a matrix are very close. So this is a Sparkline. That's we're going to just call it that, and we'll publish it. And we'll close. And let's go into the view menu. And no, let's go to insert, go to report parts, and let's do a search. There she is. Okay, very good.